I'm so happy you're here, Phoebe. We've been trying really hard to get this going.
Oh my God, yes, I know. It's always such an issue because I'm in Australia, so middle of bloody nowhere.
Uh,
Um,
and you guys have a lot
complete-
going on.
yeah, yeah. I managed over New Year's. I was stuck in the evacuation centre for Christmas and New Year, and I was meant to be on holiday. And yeah, I mean, we lost nothing comparative to what other people around us lost, but even at the time, we were like, this is real. This is really real. And I was with Australians who'd been through all the various fires before. They were like, this is like definitely the worst it's ever been.
It was, we've been all watching it over here. I mean, I'm over on the other side of the world from you, and we've been all just watching it, just mouths open, shot. I mean, I'm over in California where we just had like the wildfires that seemed insane, and then your entire continent went on fire.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and you know what the crazy thing is? California and Australia share helicopters for firefighting.
Yeah.
But because the seasons are crossing over because of global warming, when we were like, please can we have the helicopter back to fight fires, you guys are like, we've still got fires as well. So yeah. Chaos.
All of my family like are either teachers or firefighters, and then a whole family over in Australia. So it's really,
no way.
yeah. Oh
hectic.
God. So are things getting better over there? We don't.
So much better.
Oh,
So much better. So in the last 3 or 4 days, there has been just a dumping of rain, like in all the right ways. And it's just helped so much. It's gone from kind of, 80 fires that are uncontrollable to I think about 13.
because you have, I think we actually share a lot of the same disorders, and you're telling me about, because you're in summer right now over there, and
Technically summer, yeah.
you just brought up this interesting point of like global warming and chronic conditions and how we're
Yes.
yeah.
Like, yeah. Yeah. There's an apocalypse, so we're going to be the first to go.
Oh my God. I'm sorry. Like I read your dark humor thing, and I'm like, oh, we're gonna get along great. We're gonna be fine. And my son always says, he's like, you know what? If there's something that goes down, I'm out of here. I'm the healthy one. I'm out. Like, you're the first zombies. You're zombie fit.
For sure.
I mean, to be fair, with POTS, my reaction, and I'm sure you can understand, is like to fall down and go to sleep if there's something like really intense happening. It's like I'll just sleep
lay on the floor. Yeah.
Either it'll happen or it won't. What can you do?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, mine too as well.
I very
yeah.
Oh no, I've very selfishly been dying to talk to you because you travel.
Yes, I'm one of the lucky ones. Yeah.
I'm going to be picking your brain through this entire interview because I'm just very curious about how this all works for you. And I
of course
loved your show notes. Like I've been reading through your blog and your website and like deep dived into Twitter, and you have a great YouTube channel. And if you're listening, please head over to show notes. I have everything linked up right at the top, and your British comedy series.
Awesome.
So we have a lot to talk about. Lead me off, because you had your chronic illness journey start in one of the most interesting and different ways I've ever heard of anyone's starting.
Oh, really?
That's a new one for me. I've never heard dengue fever as a jumping off point. So
interesting. Yeah, of course, fab. So I mean, it all began really when I was in Malaysia. I was on a summer exchange, and yeah, I got diagnosed with dengue fever, feeling like really intense flu symptoms, but then just hallucinations in the night. And I was like, whoa, this is big. What's going on? And then my friend in the morning was like, right, your mum's been to contact me. Something's wrong. You said you contacted her. I was like, I did. I don't remember contacting her. I did it while in hallucination. I contacted my dad, apparently. Don't remember that. But he was like, yeah, we're going to go to hospital. And then it ended up with 2 weeks in dengue fever. We're in hospital with dengue fever. And they were it may have been the language barrier, but they were very haphazard. They were like, oh, you're so big. You're, white, Western, strong woman. And it's, yeah, I got out and I was like, yeah, I might be big, but my body's not strong. So I couldn't really walk, couldn't really do anything to function to get better, but I had nobody there to help me. at the time, because obviously it's an exchange. So I had to head home. And then it just developed from there. And I spent kind of my final year of university being perpetually exhausted, headaches, bone aches. But I was very, very fortunate that the university degree I was doing at the time had such low contact hours. I only had to be in university for 12 hours a week. And the content that we were doing, I just found very easy to be able to manage with my illness. There wasn't any kind of extreme pressure of retaining information. Otherwise I would have been screwed. But I was very fortunate. I mean, I'd nap for 3 hours a day while I was there doing my university degree. I'd faint a couple of times a week, and then it just poured down into depression, because I don't know what's wrong with me. I can't do anything. And so I was diagnosed with depression then. And then finally, once I kind of ploughed through university, getting myself through with kind of literally any means I can, I dabbled in nootropics as well, just to be like, well, if this is life, like, no one's saying I'm ill, nothing's wrong with me, like, I'm just going to crack on. So I dabbled in nootropics there, which probably wasn't the healthiest thing to do, with how weak my body was.
What's nootropics?
Nootropics is the science and research behind intaking drugs, compounds, chemicals to increase your intelligence and your capabilities of learning.
Got it.
Yeah.
Like Silicon Valley over here. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, they're huge, and no doubt taken in the right way. So I was taking modafinil, or taken in the right way, it probably would do wonders. But my body was already kind of at a breaking point. So I mean, it made me probably back up to a normal person, but you didn't had all the symptoms of taking medication. But I'm sure it works for some people. I don't intend on ever taking it again. But on from that, I just carried on ploughing on, because everybody else was healthy, everybody else was going about being a postgraduate, and I got a job in London in the investment world, which was kind of sales and relationship management. And that was probably the tipping point of having to go to, an 8 till 6 working day, my body not being used to it, the pressure of needing to make, I think my target was 100 million pounds. So about $100 million. Yeah.
Mind-boggling amount of money.
Yeah. I started my job when I was 21. So, I mean, I'm very pleased that they saw what potential I had, but at the same time, I think it was a combination of that, the fact that I hadn't finished, the symptoms that I had, I ignored a lot of them, and also I had no idea of the world of chronic illness at the time. I was completely blind to it. So when someone said, yeah, the doctor said you got depression, it's like, oh, it's depression. But it's the aches and it's the pains. And once I started seeing that I literally couldn't walk, that I was like, something's wrong. Something is wrong. So much more than depression, so much more than just a working day. And from there, then I ploughed on to try and get a diagnosis. And I think it took me overall about 6-7 months to properly get a diagnosis of postural tachycardia and ME. And on from there, it was just a slog on from there. But that initial diagnosis was a blessing and a curse, because I loved the fact that there was now a name to it. And then as soon as I said the name, people go, oh yeah, I know that, yeah, that's fine. Like, it's not fine, it's hell. But that's how it goes. That's what happens when you tell people chronic names and they don't know the illness. So yeah.
Especially when you have something like chronic fatigue, where everyone's like, oh, I know what fatigue is. You'll be fine. Like, they don't know what that actually, I'm so glad there's a new name for it instead of chronic fatigue.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't think you do know what that is. Like,
yeah. Whenever people are like, oh, you just really, it's like being tired all the time. The worst thing, I was like, if I was tired all the time, I'd cry with happiness.
Oh my gosh.
It's not just
I was a single mom for like a baby, and I worked 3 jobs, and I went to graduate school at the same time. I still wasn't as tired as I was when the chronic fatigue stuff hit. Like, it's not even tired. It's like your bones are hollowed out, and like,
it's literally someone is like shaking your joints, and then whenever you do want to go to sleep, it's like you're so tired you can't fall asleep because you're in so much pain.
It's cruel.
So
It's
annoying.
absolutely cruel. And did I see
Yeah,
you're also a fellow zebra? Was that also on your list?
I don't think, no, I'm not.
Oh, okay. Not
Explain,
Ehlers
explain
Danlos.
a little bit about that. Oh, so yeah, so basically my doctor was like, oh, you might also have this, and I was like, am I allowed any more treatment if I get diagnosed with this? And he was like, no, not really, it's kind of the same. I was like, what's the point? He was like, I suspect you have EDS as well.
Oh, forgive me, but what does that mean? If you have this, you'll be allowed more treatment?
So in the NHS, sorry, in our public health system, once you're diagnosed with certain diseases, certain illnesses, they then go, right, we're going to put you on this treatment. But this, until they've got a definitive treatment, they don't offer anything. They
Oh,
offer as much as they can. So, example, when I was diagnosed with ME, they immediately said, right, we need to get you on graded exercise therapy. But if I was just diagnosed with POTS, they wouldn't have said that.
that's
Yeah.
fascinating. Is that why people get the
Yeah.
private insurance also when they're in that system?
Uh, Chronic illness isn't covered by any private health insurance.
That is
So,
fascinating.
like, because
There's
I
so
had
much we
private
need
health
to learn
insurance at
about, like
the
the
time.
social medicine as we're having this discussion here. And yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for
So,
clearing that up for me.
you're more than welcome. Yeah. So he was like, I was kind of 3 or 4 sessions in, and I was talking about these various symptoms. And he was like, I think you might also have EDS. And he was like, but while you're still working, while you're doing this, while you've got the support of your family, you're literally entitled to no more benefits. You've got nothing, there's nothing else I can give you. So he was like, do you want to do the test? I was like, what's the point? Is there any point? You know? So I was like, no, I just want to go home and sleep. So yeah.
I want a new condition called doctor fatigue because like it's just where I can't do another visit. I can't see another doctor. I just can't.
Yeah, I mean, oh god, especially our general GPs, practitioners, they need to know so much. So I completely understand, but the amount of times it's longer. I've had 2 doctors be like, "You're just on your period." Oh, I can't
Yeah.
have period.
My concern
That
is
sounds
you're
scary.
stressed. Like decrease your life stress. So it's like, I'm sorry. Does that work for you?
Oh,
Like, does anyone?
yeah. I was gonna, yeah, stress. Like, you've had a history of depression, so let's consider that as well. I'm like, yeah, it's incredibly frustrating. And in fairness, my diagnostic doctor, he was very good. Like, you could see that this was a room full of research. Like, he was trying the best he could with no funds whatsoever, and he just cut it straight to me. He was like, this is what's on offer. Plenty of people think it doesn't work. Here's a list of 100 things that people have said might work, and I've said, help them, see if it sticks.
That's
And that's what I
that's
got.
kind of awesome. Like,
Exactly. But I tell a normal, healthy person that, they're like, that's so neglectful. I'm like, that's probably the most compassionate anybody's been. So just the comparative there.
have you ever left your mental health history off of a thing for a GP just because, like, I'm
Oh
just
my
curious if
God,
other people do
yeah.
this. I do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
I was curious.
Because, yeah, for me as well, I have never had symptoms of anxiety until I had the postural tachycardia. So I remember what it was like to not have anxiety. So I know what it feels like to be like, what the hell are they talking about? But I also know what it feels like to be like, why is something sitting on my chest? So because I know it's the POTS
Yeah.
and not me, it's not just a tendency of my brain. I'm so clear that it's my POTS. And it always happens when I'm more tired. It always happens if I haven't had enough to drink, that kind of thing. So I just purposely I almost don't even say it as a symptom until I trust the doctor.
That's I hear that viscerally.
Mm,
Like I totally feel that. And it's such a
mm.
question mark with my own child who's dealing with POTS as well, of like, what do we put
Oh,
on this form? Like because when,
yeah.
someone presents as female and comes in younger, it's like, oh, it's mental. It's
Yeah, exactly. And
not
it's
anything
like,
serious.
yeah, and it is mental. It's such a huge task, but they
Mm.
don't think about that mental side of it, and they just write it off as mental that they know, that they understand.
You make such a good point there.
Mm, yeah, because
So
it's hugely mentally taxing. Yeah.
I don't think people understand just how, like, especially like when you're talking about the not recovery process, but the protocol. Sorry, my pills still have not kicked in yet, so we're please forgive me as I'm
Bless
like
you.
talking in circles. Like, just let's get the pain level down from like an 8.5 to a 7 so I can human. They'll kick in soon, I promise.
Do your best.
Oh goodness, I'm trying. It was one of these wild mornings of like, I usually have my, like, just the pills get taken at a certain time, but then I got a phone call from my child who was like, I forgot everything at home. Could you just? And I was like, I forgot everything. It was awful for brain. Yeah,
Yeah.
life of, but that goes into like the mentally taxing part. That's where I was going with this. Thank you for sticking with me for that roundabout way to get to this. I don't think people give the protocol enough credit for how taxing protocol is. Like, of all the things you're supposed to do to be a good patient, and
Yes.
that's that's like a full-time job, at least.
Yeah. To
So
try and muddle your way through when, Western medicine doesn't have an answer, but they're used to always having an answer, and there's no protocol for them. How are we meant to act like a patient who's receiving benefit when we're not? We're being missed. So yeah, definitely.
So how did you do that? And please, everyone, do not sue me. Do not sue anyone. This is not medical advice. I'm just curious. You had a kind of different way of dealing with the protocol. Can you tell me a little bit about how you did that? And by the way, seriously, people, not medical advice. Talk to your doctor. And we're just having a
Absolutely.
discussion about our personal experiences. Are you? There's just a little clicking sound. I was just
Nope, not typing.
okay.
Oh, it might be me tapping. Yeah, I am tapping.
Ah,
Sorry.
the joy of Zoom. No problem. Just wanted to ask. So what was your way of handling this? I've tried
Yeah.
everything from like acupuncture to marijuana to like I finally just stepped out because I couldn't afford all the alternate treatments. Like what did you do?
Yeah. So I think for me, I was very fortunate in that my doctor was very good in understanding. He was one of the main people who were trying to develop there's currently research into the development of a tablet in Norway, and it was going ahead when I was first diagnosed, and that's for ME,
Okay.
about the way that the cells reproduce. They believe that it's actually something that's malfunctioning in the cell production rather than, and then it manifests to the brain. I'm not 100% so, but he was actually absolutely on the cutting edge of research, but his head was so far in the research he couldn't really give any true treatment. He hadn't really been on the ground. He was there for the strategy. But in fairness to him, he did say, try all these things, see if it sticks. If you want to be on the waiting list for this through the NHS, we can facilitate. If you want to do it quicker, go the other way. And the waiting list was like 6 months. So some I waited, some I went through private at my own cost. But I mean, I tried everything. I feel like I tried everything. I did physiology, physios, reflexology, chiropractor, Chinese herbs, Reiki, meditation, which really helped me in Venice, acupuncture.
Did you say it really helped you in Venice or in?
No, in fairness.
Oh,
In
okay.
fairness.
Like this is gonna be a really fun chat.
And I also got to the stage where I was doing all these things that he'd suggested to me, but I hadn't changed anything in my life. I was trying to keep up everything of my old life, but have all these extras thinking it will help. But that's the Western way to view it. Take a pill and it will help, but continue whatever you're doing. It's like, no, why have you got ill in the first place? And for me, a lot of it was coming from doing life in a way that I thought everybody else should be doing life, maybe not a way that suited me. On top of, living the London life, which is very hectic. It's a bit like the New York lifestyle. You don't really get any downtime. And naturally, as a human, I'm also quite introverted. So even London as a city is not really attuned to how I like to live anyway. And then add it on top is the illness. So I just kind of looked at my life and was like, I need to stop comparing my life to other people's life because my body is not the same as their body. And it just got to the stage where I'd made myself so ill from kind of working myself into the ground, keeping up with social engagements, you know, being a friend to other people and allowing them to lean on me and, you know, take something from my cup and my cup wasn't full, that eventually I was just in bed with a gazillion infections everywhere. I could hardly walk, I could hardly see, like my POTS sometimes like makes it like the room spinning, and I felt like I was permanently on a roller coaster while I was in bed, which is great for like that 30-second spinny feeling. You're like, ooh, I'm on a roller coaster. But I'm talking like weeks. It's so frustrating. And it just got to the point when I was like, this has got nothing to do with the illness. Like this could have been stopped if I had let this stop. So I realized that it wasn't really, as much as these alternatives could help me, and they definitely did, it was more to do with what I'm putting in my body, how I'm using my body, and the way I'm reacting in my head to certain situations and stimulus. So they were the biggest changes for me. So I kind of, when I could, I dove into audiobooks. I couldn't read because it just hurt my head too much. But I think overall the things that were most helpful for me were Chinese herbs. Completely changed my lifestyle. I had to quit my job. I took on a job that was way less demanding of me. Also very fortunate that it was part-time working at home, part-time working in the office. And if I said, you know, I was too ill to work in the office, they'd let me stay at home, which is just a godsend. Chinese herbs diet, really strict diet, really strict diet. Lots of water, lots of meditation, but also always making, I know it sounds great, and I've still got it now, there's an ongoing joke in my house that like I'm a martyr with sleep. And when it gets to 8:30, I'm like, the house is now quiet because there may be opportunity that I will be able to sleep. So that was kind of the biggest things. And I just, as much as, you know, the diagnostic doctor was there and he was very frank, he was very honest, he was like, we don't know, good luck. So, you know, what do you do with that? And in a sense, it made it easier for me to try out new things. But the one thing I do think that I got very good at is being very tenacious in the fact that if something didn't work, I was like, well, it's not that it's not working, it's that it's not working for me. So where do I look? And you know, giving it a proper chance, you know, giving the diet that I took on kind of, you know, a 10-week chance rather than a 3-week chance, which is a long time when you're suffering from chronic illnesses. But I think that was the one thing that really allowed me to give everything a good shot. That's the only thing that I can think of the difference, because I felt like I tried hundreds of things, genuinely. Yeah.
So how do you make that choice on, like, you're trying something, it doesn't seem to be working? How do you make the choice to either continue it, to give it a fair shot, or to just go, you know what, this is just not what's going to work for me?
Well, I mean, obviously there's constriction of finances. At the end of the day, if you're doing something that's costing you, you know, $120 a week, you're going to be looking at it with, you know, a bigger eye than something that's maybe a diet change.
Yeah.
So, for example, I tried reflexology, which helped me slightly, but there was no real noticeable change. And because I had acupuncture and I knew how much acupuncture helped me. Are you okay?
That was just an elbow going out. It'll come back
in. Because of the benefit that I saw in the acupuncture, I knew what I was looking for. So I was like, this isn't doing it for me.
Yeah, I loved acupuncture. It's just so expensive. And it was so far from where I lived, and I just physically couldn't make the journey.
So there was some, so I used to have it on the Saturday, so I didn't have to do it after work, so I'd be too tired. So that would be what I did on Saturday, acupuncture.
I hear that. Yeah, I used to take I ran my own business, so I would take Thursdays off, and I would go to, that was just my day. It was traveling to acupuncture, coming back, and I think it actually let me work longer than I would have otherwise.
Yes, absolutely. And it just gave me this, and I'd leave the acupuncturist and be like, oh my God, this is what a normal human being feels like every single day. Oh, this is so great.
Me too, and then after, like, I would leave and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I felt like my body did a reset, but it would only like 6 to 8 hours, then I'd be back to where I was before.
I was just about to say, it wouldn't last till the end of the day for me. It was about 6 hours and be back where I was like, well, it's a Saturday, I was going to sit on the couch anyway. You know, I wasn't going to do anything productive. And as soon as I had the energy, I was like, oh, save it. So
that's another question, is you have like a lot of stuff you do. How do you make that choice of like, spend the spoon, keep the spoon?
Yeah, so I'm very, very fortunate. While I was at home, I was diagnosed in remission of ME. So now the main one I'm juggling with is POTS. And to say that I have more spoons is an understatement. Like, I won the lottery comparative to what I had. But I still have to be more aware, and people still notice, you know, she's got an illness, she's doing things differently. Um, but for me, I'm really good at planning ahead. And also I'm not jealous when I see healthy people be able to do more things than me. I'm no longer jealous. I used to get really jealous. I used to really wallow in the unfairness of it. And it's
Mm.
like, well, it's not unfair. This is just life, and life is unfair, and this is the card you've got. So in terms of deciding on a spoon, it's exactly what I want to do, basically.
That's
And
really
yeah,
cool. Where
yeah.
you get to spend your spoon how you want to spend. And I reading through your notes was amazing. It was almost like a self-help book, honestly, like your
Good.
blog and your notes. And I love what you were talking about with like letting go of what other people think your life should be. And
Yes.
that they really don't even necessarily care what that's supposed to be or not, not in a cruel way, but, or hopefully not in a cruel way, but like you have to make these choices for you regardless of what someone else is doing. And you travel all the time, and I don't want to lose this opportunity to ask you about Spoonie traveling. And I know you don't like the term life hack. I am sorry, my brain's not working properly, so I'm just going to have to ask, what are your travel hacks for like dealing with and I don't know what medications you're on, and I just want to make a quick sidebar note for if you're listening and you are a traveling Spoonie. There is an episode I did with Kuros. He had gotten arrested because of the medications he had, and he thought he had done everything legally. Please listen to that episode. I will link it in the show notes. But please, 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 at least go to our show notes on this one if you're thinking about traveling and you have a lot of medications, because it wasn't even the medication I thought that he was on that he would have gotten stopped, arrested, and held in another country. So
Really?
I don't know what
Wow.
medications you're on for this, but can you give me some like hacks on like between just getting to the traveling place, traveling, and like what you pack?
Yeah, of course. So, in terms of planning a trip, I always consider the flight time, because flying for me is really taxing. The pressure changes. After I'm dead. So, I always have to consider that. I'm obviously always traveling with compression socks. I always Google just in case if there's a wheelchair on the other side when I arrive. If there isn't, you know. Um, and if there isn't, I then have to pretty much not do anything the day before, whereas I can do something the day before. If they do have a wheelchair there, just in case. I've only had to use a wheelchair twice, which is good. I do travel with medication. I travel with I don't know the brand name in the States, but in Australia it's called Axit. It's a antidepressant that just really helps me be able to regulate my sleep.
Mm.
Um, in terms, it's really helped with my heart palpitations, which has been great. And you know, when I started this journey of being very ill, I just popped every pill going just to keep going. So I think that's kind of the final remains of the drugs I will be taking. I do occasionally take painkillers. I do have prescriptions for painkillers, but I always carry my prescription notes with me whenever I do travel anywhere, because I know I have asked before to see, people have asked me, because also I travel around with like a bag like this. So they're like, why have you got that many pills? Are you going to kill yourself in our country? It's like, no, just living, just trying to enjoy.
The exact opposite, actually.
Yeah, exactly, just to live. But in terms of the amount of pills I take, it's really not that many. You know, I used to be taking 7 or 8 a day, and at most now I take maybe 2. So that's great. But in terms of hacking with travel, there's no hack. You have to be the most organized version of yourself. And if you forget something, tough luck, you're going back. You can't forget things. Particularly, say, for example, if I go out for a day and I don't bring any water, well, I mean, that's never going to happen. I always bring water. If I don't bring enough water, then you know, it's like, well, hang on, we're not going anywhere until we find another source of water. And my partner here hates it. He's like, don't use single-use plastic. I was like, single-use plastic or me fainting. I'll try my best to recycle it afterwards. but the main thing is just planning and just, you know, knowing what's reasonable for your body. So say, for example, I go to a country, people will walk 15, 20 kilometers a day trying to see everything. We can't do that. I can't do that. You pick one or two things and you have a good time doing those things rather than be absolutely exhausted. Because I just said it yesterday, because I'm planning a trip to Asia this year. Do you not want to try and do everything? Well, no, because 4 years ago I could do nothing. So even the fact that I've got 50% of that is already so much better than what I had the option of before. So it's really just changing the expectations and never comparing to a normal backpacker. Yeah, never compare. And they're like, you're staying at an Airbnb. I'm like, I'm not staying at an Airbnb. I'm just being allowed to sleep for 24 hours. No. Yeah.
Yes, I hear
Yeah.
all of that. That's one of the big things that we had to learn was that we just, especially because I travel with my child and
Yeah.
my partner, and so the three of us will sit together, and we're actually going to be leaving soon, and we each come up with two
Awesome.
things, like only two things that are we would be so bummed if this didn't happen, and then the rest
Yeah.
of it's just this roll of the dice of like maybe.
Exactly. That is exactly what I do as well. Yeah. And it's, you know, I wasn't going to have this opportunity 4 years ago, so what's the difference? Like, it's great. This isn't awesome. The fact that I'm even here, the fact I can even step on the plane, it's awesome. So, and also one hack that I will say is I travel everywhere with swimming earplugs and an eye mask and my compression socks. So I look like a princess while I sleep, but I'm like, nah, sleep hygiene. It's great. I'm all about the sleep hygiene.
Have
So
you
yeah,
tried goo or noon, or do you guys have goo or noon
every
over there?
day. I do it
Right,
every
that's
day now.
like always in my purse. And I also have
Yeah.
like a salt shaker in my purse too. I just do salt shots with like
Yes.
water.
Yeah. I always, yeah, me too. And obviously everybody that doesn't understand is like, oh, that's so bad for you. I'm like, no, again, this is good for me. Yeah, exactly the same. Exactly the same. Yeah.
And do you also like, I hate how much more money it costs, but it's
Oh
absolutely
my God.
imperative because I have to usually use a wheelchair or cane. But single flights, like I can't do stops
Yeah.
because like to get out of the plane, to get the wheelchair
Oh
there,
yeah,
to
I
get
can
to the
imagine. I
next
can
gate.
imagine. Yeah. And when it's, so I can manage stops, but when they're like, oh, it's a long stopover, and I'm like, yeah, but like, what if it's delayed for another 2 hours there, and then I don't get in until that time? Like, these are things that's like a little bit of an inconvenience to a healthy person, but it changes my whole week.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to do that. Um, so yeah, it definitely makes me a slightly more panickier traveler, but but in the way that I only ever panic for my health. As soon as I realize I'm not going to get enough sleep, or I'm not going to get enough water, or I'm not having food at regular intervals, and I don't have access to salt, hypothetically, that's when I'm like, no, we're going here and we're doing this now. But it's just all my panic about my health. Yeah.
Oh gosh, you brought like two things up that I'm going to try really hard to remember which one I want to ask you about. So I will
Okay.
try to get to them. You brought up one point that is near and dear to my heart, as I like to think of myself as an environmentalist, as an activist, but I'm sick. And the single water bottle use, the straws, like all of it, I feel like it's almost, and like I need Amazon. I hate Amazon. I need them.
Yeah.
It's almost like
Yeah.
this like attack of like my values versus ability to survive. How do you walk that line?
Couldn't agree more. I usually go with, I plan as best I can. I have reusable 2 1 litre bottles of water, so I pretty much am set for like a 7 hour period wherever I am. I try my hardest. We're very, very fortunate in Australia. They're so on it in terms of not using single plastic, being able to go to the source and the big bulk products in plastic, in brown paper bags, that kind of thing. But when I'm traveling, I see it and I'm like, I remember one time I was in the Philippines and I was wanting pineapple, and they had put salt on it there. They put chili salt on it, and yeah, the
That's my
perfect
snack
salty.
now. I'm gonna try this. That sounds
Yeah,
amazing.
it's awesome. It's so good. And he gave it to me in a plastic bag. I was like, no, plastic bag. So I had it in my hand. Like there are times where I'm like, is this too much? I don't know what's going on. But yeah, I really do try my hardest, and every flight that I take, I offset it. I've got a contact with a conservation trust in the UK, so I try my hardest in that way. And if it means that it costs a little more or it takes a little longer, I'm happy to do so. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, if it's a state of emergency for my health comes first, which makes me very angry that I have to choose between the two. But that's just, how it is.
It's frustrating. Yeah,
Really
I
frustrating.
feel that frustration. Also, like, one of the frustrations I have is the extra cost in being sick, in especially
Oh my
traveling.
God.
Like, the amount of Uber versus, like, I can't do
Yes.
metro. I can't do the I forgot what the underground for London.
Yeah. Tube.
Like, just how much more expensive it is, and how
Oh
scary it
my
is.
God, it's so much more expensive.
Yeah, and
Accommodation, you have to go, like, accommodation. You have to consider, is it quiet? Has it got this? Has it got that? Is it easily, can you easily walk to the toilet? Can you do this? And before you know it, you've nearly doubled the price, and people are like, oh my God, you're paying so much. Like, I don't want to do that. And also, you're not with the people, for me particularly, when I'm backpacking, they'll be like, oh, come with us. I'm like, I can't.
yeah.
Like, just flat out, I have to have a week alone. So it is very expensive, and even people recognize it when I go out for meals, because I'm celiac. So people are like, oh, you have to pay more for your meal, and it's so unfair. I was like, this doesn't even touch the sides. I'm fine with an extra $2 for a pizza. Everything else, like, so expensive. But they don't see that, they don't think about that. And in fairness, until I was ill, I didn't think about it either. So
I
yeah.
always think about it as like, I don't know if you're a Neil Gaiman fan, but he wrote this amazing book called Neverwhere, and it was like there's this London above and London below, and it all exists like next to each other, and until you fall into London below, you don't know that it's existing. It's just little things that you kind of like notice out the corner of your eye. I feel like chronic illness is like that, like especially with
Yes.
wheelchairs. Like, there's so much now that pisses me off that I'm like, oh, I probably did that too. Like, before
Yeah.
I got a wheelchair.
Oh my
Like,
God, yeah.
same stuff.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I remember there was an article I read about a lady who has chronic migraines. I can't remember the piece. It was so beautifully written. But she spoke about kind of a kingdom of health and a kingdom of illness, and how it's so interlaced. And yet the kingdom of illness spend the whole time considering the kingdom of health, but the kingdom of health don't even realize that the kingdom of illness is there. I was like, that's so true. So true.
Actually true about a lot of things, like from poverty to racism to,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
if you're not in that group, it just doesn't quite click in on exactly what
Yeah.
people are talking about. It's like one of the things I love about Twitter and social media is it's allowed like this window, if you're willing to like listen, there's this window that opens up where you're like, whoa, that's what you're dealing with? Oh my gosh. Like,
Yes. Oh my God, that is so true. And I always used to have it where I'd be like looking at Twitter, obviously just to find support.
yeah.
Even just looking at messages where other people are having a similar time to me. And, I was living with my parents to get better for a time when I was had a job there. And they were like, oh, don't go on your phone. It's really bad for you. You need to do a digital detox. It's not good for you. And I'm like, I promise you, this 5 minutes looking at my screen will help my mental health so much more than it will damage it. But again, because they've never been in that kind of bracket of illness, they have no idea, the loneliness of it. So yeah.
That's one of my pet peeves in the world, is this obsession with technology is bad. Like, just this out of hat idea that we're wasting our time like going on Facebook and Twitter or Instagram, or that, like, I get a lot of flack because I let my child spend a lot of time on a tablet because my child loves to make graphic novels and animations. I'm like, cool, it's a tool, you're using it correctly, well done. Like,
Yeah,
sounds
like a great hobby.
Right. And my child also has chronic illness, so I'm also trying to be understanding of, hey, this is we call it our darling slug days. We always have. It's we curl up and we watch Jane Austen movies or Blackadder, or like, we're basically BBC fans over here. And then we draw and we do art projects, and we've done that since my littlest was like 2. But it's
oh, that sounds so great.
It's really lovely. It was a lot of learning how to, a lot of what you just had talked about, of you can't look at how someone else is doing something and try to
Yeah.
set that as your bar. That can't be your bar. I couldn't be the mom who was going to be like, let's go play tag and let's go run
Yeah.
and let's go hike all weekend. Like that wasn't who I could be. Like
Yeah.
it
So
was
what?
a
Yeah. So you've got the, yeah, exactly. You've got the cards you're dealt with. So am I going to be miserable that I haven't got somebody else's cards, or I'm going to use these cards? Yeah.
No, you made such a great point in one of your requests. I seriously love your answers. And you're talking about life decisions, and
Yeah.
yeah, you're talking about like how like most people get to go heart, brain, and like there's this reshuffle for chronic
Oh,
illness.
absolutely. I think I don't actually remember what I wrote. I can't remember what I wrote now, but I think there's a yeah. Read part of it out to me. I'll remember.
No worries. So I keep show notes here, and I have my written notes over here to like keep me
Oh dear.
sane. Um, well, sane is a relative concept
Yeah.
over here. You had written to bring up the feeling of needing to do life in a certain way. I know lots of people relate to this. I think a large area of health suffer from trying to conform. In life, you're forced to either consider decisions head versus heart. But in chronic illness or disability, you never factor in the body. When you're ill, you have to go head versus heart versus body and try to decide like which one of those shuffles in where.
Yeah. Oh yeah. God, that's a good point.
I'll
Great
remind you
point
how
by
smart
me.
you are. It's okay. I'm right here for that.
Thanks. But yeah, no, that is very true. I know the reason that I said that is because I was with my sister. She's currently at university, and they're all riddled with anxiety. And they're all 21, absolutely gorgeous. You know, they've got world's their oyster, and they're all riddled with anxiety, just comparing each other, continuously comparing each other to one another. And I'm like, you're so lucky to even be able to compare yourself to one another. I wouldn't, and obviously that sounds so ridiculous because you shouldn't compare at all, but like I don't even have the opportunity to think, oh I don't even have the opportunity to think with my head or think with my heart or make those kind of decisions like a normal human being, because I just think about my body continuously. It goes first all the time, even when I'd love to only use my heart, you know, in relationships point of view, I have to think about my body. And even when I only want to use my head, like how can I use the skills I've got through university and I've got through this experience, and how can I apply them to, you know, work and be progressive? It's like, no, which job can I do with my
Mm.
body, you know?
Oh,
So
viscerally.
yeah, yes, literally. And people forget that, I think. I mean, they don't know that, but that's what I found. As soon as when people are making decisions about life, I'm like, I wish I had that decision, but you know, I don't. So yeah, everything, body comes first every single time.
It's a very cruel reality. My husband and I were
Mm,
driving somewhere, and I was looking at the side. It wasn't a jealousy thing, it was more of a curiosity thing. I've been sick since I
mm,
was 8, so I've always had to have this
oh
going in my head. But
yeah,
I was watching this couple just walking up a hill, and it was just like, it was their Saturday walk. And I just looked at my husband, I'm like, what would that be like? Like, I'm just curious, what would
mm,
it be like to wake up
yeah,
in the morning and just be like, let's just go for a walk? And there wouldn't be a consideration of like, what happens when I dislocate my knee on this walk? What would happen for the next week? Would I be able to take care of anyone else during the week? Because I have people and animals who rely on that. Like, it was just such an
yes,
interesting idea for just a second of what it would be like. And
yeah. And I think for me as
it
well,
happened.
because I did, yeah, exactly. And when I got ill, because I got ill when I was 20, I knew what that was like. So I think it was even harder to give up the heavy heart battle and then add body into the equation of I just wallowed in the grief of having to do it. There was a lot of mourning, but now it just goes without saying, my body comes first.
So how did the mourning process
Yeah.
work for you?
Oh, so much grief. It was. I really was just wallowing in it for a time. It was awful, and it went through days of, well, this is what I've got to do. You know, strength is no longer what I thought strength was. Strength is perseverance and this, you know, this quiet way of, you know, going down a path that you haven't even made that's your own. Um, but every so often I would see a friend go out and do something and be like, oh, I've had a really, really bad day. I had this. And it's like, your day was great, shut up. So there's a lot of spite at the start. So I think that was not handled as correctly as it should be. But, we're all human. But I think a lot of it was helped by cognitive behavioural therapy that was suggested to me by my doctor, which was a great suggestion. It maintained a real calm in my head, and it almost feels like I've taken off a lot of layers of, in that mourning process, I've taken off a lot of layers of what I thought people thought I was, and now I'm just who I am. I'm
Oh,
very, yeah. So a
that's
lot
an
of, I
underlying
thought,
moment there.
I thought a lot of, what made me me was how people viewed me. And at the end of the day, even as you said at the start of the conversation, people don't really care. So just do what you want to do and be yourself. And I had a lot of wallowing, like, well, who am I? I don't even know who I am. So I think that was the grieving process for me. Like, who am I with this illness? Because a lot of what made me me, I wasn't allowed to be anymore.
God, that's one of the
Yeah,
hardest questions all of us little creatures are trying to answer. It's
yeah,
like, what
exactly.
is that? Like, I don't know if you ever saw Fight Club, but I thought that was one of the best
Yes,
movies about like when you strip everything away, what are you?
yeah. Oh my god, it's such a great film.
Right?
Great reference. Yeah. But no, I absolutely agree. And people even say it to me now. They're like, you just are so rock solid. And it's like, oh God, you've got to realize I'm not. But I'm just a lot further on, because it's almost like the illness like puts it on steroids almost of, but you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this. So it's like, well, hang on, what? You've got to find value in somewhere else, and you really have to spend a lot of time sitting with your thoughts, because you spend a lot of time sitting in a dark, cold room. So yeah, you learn a lot.
Horrifying, or oh gosh, I'm gonna mangle the quote horribly, but it was basically the idea that life will teach you, like it's cruel and it's brutal, but experience will teach you. Like,
Yes, unfortunately, yeah, it will do. And yeah, I couldn't imagine having this since I was 8 years old, even going through this as a kid, because you almost don't even know what normal. You're very, very aware of what other people are doing. I don't. Yeah, hats
may
off.
I
I don't
just
know.
say it's way easier. I at least for me, it was. I don't know how you all do it. All of you who start like having these problems as an adult, as like I don't know how you guys manage it, because if you don't know anything different, it's just like,
Yeah,
well, that bites that everyone else can run and I can't, and that bites that I have to miss 3 months of school. Like it just kind of
yeah,
becomes like that's your life, where
yeah.
you guys had
True.
like expectations before that, and that's insane to me. I've always had to plan my life as a sick person. Like that was never, healthy was never going to be an option. So yeah, you
Yeah,
guys, you're all rock stars as far as I'm concerned. That's amazing to me.
I think we're all rock stars managing it.
Right? All of us. So you had put something in like the things that your family and coworkers had said about your illness, of like, when are
Mm,
you going to stop this? And then
yeah.
like that was a hit to the gut. But you said something about your
Mm.
sister. I was wondering what your sister did for you that really was helpful and supportive.
Yeah, so I think one of the things with mine was I would have really good highs and I'd have really big troughs. So people from day, and I don't know how to predict them, and I don't know, one day I might walk to the park and the next day I'll be fine. One day I might walk to the park and I'll have to be in bed for 3 days. I have no control over, I mean, as you well know, I have no control over what happens from one day to the next when you're particularly ill like that. So people would see me one evening and I'm like, oh, I feel good. I can walk to the tube stop. And then another evening, I'm like, I'm dead. Like, I'm going to have to lay down in the toilet for half an hour. And then I tell people, they're like, what? Hang on, yesterday you were fine. Um, so I think because there was so much disparity about how good I was and how bad I was, they were like, when are you getting better? What's going on? When have you have you stopped faking yet? And obviously they're obviously doing it as a joke. And if they truly knew how ill I was, they wouldn't have said it. But my sister, when I got home, at this point I'd completely admitted to Fee. I'd given up my social life. I had a relationship at the time that just wasn't working because of the illness. I gave up my job. And I was like, I've got nothing. I felt as if I had almost nothing left. And then there was times where, so obviously you assume your elders, your parents, are going to have expertise and empathy and understanding. And I really felt like at times that they didn't. And it's not for their lack of trying, but they are very much of the convention of what normal strength is to able people to keep going, perseverance, do this, do this. And my sister is, accommodating to everybody. She's quiet, she's kind. And I remember there was one evening where I was in my bed, I was had a migraine, my head was spinning. And I remember saying to Mum, please can we not have people over, because our house is very open. So if there's any, I can hear like a spoon turning in a cup of tea. If I've got a really bad migraine, that hurts. So I was like, please don't have anybody over. She goes, oh, we've got to have them over. It's around Christmas time. Oh, we're going to have them over because our family friend is really busy, so she can't have it at her house. Having it at our house. I was like, no, I'm asking nicely, please don't do that. Anyway, I go up to the room because I can't argue, obviously, because I'm too tired. And I head up there and I'm just kind of sitting there with just eyes streaming. Like, I just didn't know what to do. I was like, how else can I explain? My own family don't believe it. They don't understand it. How else can I explain it? And I remember my sister, who was 17 at the time, who couldn't stand up to anybody for herself if her life depended on it, goes downstairs and they were like, and she goes, are you serious? You've got a daughter and you're choosing your daughter's health comparatively to someone needing to wrap presents. Are you serious? And you can hear Mum going, that's a really bad way to look at it. And she was like, how shall I look at it then? And she was like, just listen to her. And I've never heard my sister ever raise her voice. And I was like, how can a 17-year-old with only 17 years in this life be so empathetic, and yet everybody else around me have no awareness of it? And yeah, it just absolutely blew me away. It made me realise that anything is possible. I never thought she'd do that. And that, she might be more than, just nicey Jasmine. And she might have dealt with more than we thought she dealt with, She's a huge empath, and I only realised that then, because she was the only one that even mildly understood.
Having an advocate is such an important thing. You're so right. There's just a certain point where it's like, no matter how much you need something, you can't fight for it anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And I couldn't raise my voice when they were saying, nah, don't worry, we'll keep it quiet. I'm like, you won't keep it quiet. Even putting a pan in the oven for food is loud. But I felt like I didn't want to say anything because I was waiting for the rejection. As awful as that sounds, I was like, they're not going to understand. If I explain that hurts me, they'll feel I'm being melodramatic, because 3 days ago it didn't hurt me. So yeah, it was really eye-opening to see that, actually, how somebody, my parents were both around 60 at the time, 120 years of life between them, they can muster the empathy and understanding for it, but someone who's 17 could. So yeah.
There's something about this next generation coming in that is just rocking my world with their ability to have empathy. And
me too.
Like,
and I think
wow.
as much as they're all dealing with anxiety because they're constantly comparing themselves to each other, and I think that is related through social media, I think in a sense they've got so much more awareness of everything. I mean, when I was 17, I didn't know the extent of global warming, and we've got people back at home that can just riddle off facts about global warming and what they do personally. I remember seeing a 7-year-old kid tell his mum the other day not to use a plastic bag when she was getting apples, and I don't think that could be done through if there wasn't social media. So I think that's where it's coming from.
there's a lot of positive to social media that I don't think we've quite tapped into, because it's a knee-jerk reaction. It was,
Yeah,
I'm old enough, I'm also a historian, so I looked back through history, and you can go all the way back to Socrates saying the same things we're hearing now. We've just found new and
yeah,
interesting ways to do the same things we've always done. Like, we want the
exactly.
same
Yeah,
things, we're scared of the same things, we've just found new and interesting ways to deal with all of that.
absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Well, we've gotten to an hour, and I do
Oh,
want to make
yeah.
sure that we do fit in the one question you wanted to answer. So,
Yes,
and I do want you to stay on after we sign off, because I do want to ask you a question off air. But
of course.
asked about symptoms that you face that you no longer face.
Ooh, a symptom that I face that I no longer face. Did I have an answer for it?
No, which is why I was asking it. But if you don't
So
have that answer, I'm hoping to ask you back on the show. So,
I don't. I a symptom that I face that I no longer face. The only thing that I can think of that would I could think that I was thinking when I said that would be the choice that I have. The choice that I have now. Now I'm in remission, um, and I feel as if I had this feeling of confinement, and I still have that feeling of confinement. I am not healthy. I'm not well, and I still have that feeling of confinement. And yet I feel I have so much more opportunity than I had previously. So I guess that's what I was talking about. I answered those questions so long ago. I answered them back in like August, I think.
I think you did. I'm so sorry about that. If you
Don't
want to be
worry.
a guest on this show, remember that the two people running this show are very sick. So we do
Yeah.
have problems with like our upkeep and
Oh
time.
my god, my memory is atrocious. It's I can't. I'm the worst person with names as well.
Oh my God.
I used to be really good at that. Terrible with it. So yeah,
Of all
I
the
think
things that like
yeah.
make me feel super guilty, and I have lots of them as a mom, it's the memory stuff, because the kids are
Oh
always like,
yeah,
"Do you remember when we?" I'm like, sorry. Like, and it's like that
yeah.
weird thing, because like historically moms are supposed to be the memory keepers of everything. I was like,
Yes,
I feel like I've totally
absolutely.
fallen down on that one. So
Absolutely. And I think for the worst one for me as well is feeling like I'm holding people back. Even though I know I'm not holding people back, they're wanting to do it. They're wanting to offer to not do as much with me. I can't help but feel that. That's the killer for me.
someday we're gonna have to do a panel on like all of that.
Yeah. For sure.
Oh, thank you so much for dealing with all the scheduling and technical issues, and I'm
You're
so
more than
glad you were
welcome.
on.
Yeah, I'm super happy I was on.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was such a blast. Everyone who's listening, please head over to show notes. I have everything linked up. Plus, we both have a very similar, like, dark sense of humor with BBC shows. So I linked up all the
Yeah.
BBC shows that you had mentioned, and some incredible books. And I also linked up some of their TED Talks too, because those were way too good not to put in.
Awesome.
Phoebe has an amazing website full of all sorts of great information and tips. I have that linked up at the top, so please always go visit our show notes. I have all of it there. I can't even think anymore, so I will just sign off with be
All right.
kind, be gentle, and oh wow, with everything that's going on in the world, be a badass. We can do it in any way that you are possibly able to be, whatever that looks like for you. Be a badass. Have a great week, everyone.